Hello, friends! Have you ever wondered what a person feels and sees on the verge of death? Does he see his whole life flashing before his eyes, or experience a limitless peace? Does he see the light at the end of the tunnel? What is there after death? Is it possible to see it and come back to tell what you saw? One resident of the United States managed to survive after a 27-minute coma. After waking up, she told frightening stories about life after death. Hines suffered from a heart attack in February 2018. The whole family of the woman was interested in sports and a healthy lifestyle. Once in February, she and her husband were getting ready for a hiking trip. Suddenly, she lost consciousness near the threshold of the house. While her husband Brian was waiting for the doctors to arrive, he had to fight for the life of his beloved wife on his own. Several times he tried to do cardiopulmonary resuscitation, but the woman's heart stopped. On the way to the hospital, doctors tried to start the heart, but all attempts were in vain. For 27 minutes, the woman was actually dead, but the doctors didn't stop their attempts to bring her back to life, and fortunately, they succeeded. After 4 long hours of various tests, Tina was transferred to the ward where all her worried family members were waiting for the outcome. After waking up, she could explain with gestures that she wanted to have a notebook with a pen. With a weak hand, she hardly managed to write a phrase, "It's real," in the notebook, which seemed unintelligible at first glance. When excited relatives asked what she meant, the exhausted girl raised her eyes to the sky and burst into tears. After her miraculous recovery, Tina said, "It looked terribly real. The colors were very bright." She claimed to be in heaven, where she saw the figure of Jesus next to the gate from which yellow light was pouring. This amazing vision was strong evidence for the woman that life beyond the body exists. Her belief in God and afterlife strengthened. This incredible story impressed the woman's niece, Maddie Johnson, so much that later she got a symbolic tattoo on her wrist with the message from the notebook. The girl claims that her aunt's story gave her confidence and was vivid and unforgettable, so she decided to share it with others. Approximately 90% of people who experience a sudden cardiac arrest outside the hospital die. Tina's husband, who began CPR, probably saved her life. According to statistics, from 10 to 25% of patients who have experienced clinical death as a result of a heart attack encounter similar near-death visions. There is still no exact scientific explanation for this amazing phenomenon, but such a story of revival isn't the only one in the world. Another incredible story happened with a teenager who survived a clinical death. 17-year-old Zach Clemens suddenly fell while jogging during a PE lesson and lost consciousness. His heart stopped. The young man was rushed to the hospital. Doctors did everything possible to bring him back to life, but everything was in vain. They were about to announce the death of the boy when suddenly his pulse returned. Zach was placed in the intensive care unit where he woke up a few days later. Doctors wondered how the guy managed to survive if he didn't breathe for around 20 minutes. After his incredible awakening, he said that he had seen Jesus. "When I died, I saw a man with long hair and a thick beard. I immediately realized that it was Jesus," he said in an interview. "I went up to him, he put a hand on my shoulder and said that everything would be in order and there is no need to worry," the young man added. Zach's father, Billy Clemens, said that the family considered the resurrection a real miracle. "What he said when he recovered consciousness can't be explained," said Clemens. The resurrection of Zach impressed doctors because this unbelievable revival doesn't fit into the usual framework of medical knowledge. Having survived a clinical death, a resident of Texas claimed to have seen God in the afterlife. Douglas Branson was suffering from severe insomnia for some time and was regularly drinking. In the hospital, the guy was prescribed a potent sleeping pill, but the doctors didn't know that the patient was drinking alcohol. As a result, once the young man took a sleeping pill mixed with alcohol, his body could not bear it and he suddenly fell on the floor. His heart stopped for a few minutes. Douglas was lucky that his roommate was at home and called an ambulance. When the doctors managed to resuscitate him, he told them that his whole life had flashed before his eyes during these few minutes. After that, he saw a bright tunnel that was literally attracting him. At the end of the tunnel, according to Douglas, he saw the image of God himself, who said to him that he needed to return and change his life. Due to unknown reasons, Douglas and his family decided to remain incognito, so we know only his name. Certainly, this incredible meeting with God helped Branson radically change his goals and priorities in order to start a new life from scratch. The next story which I will tell has recently shocked many residents of Germany. A 3-year-old baby named Paul Eick came back to life more than 3 hours after his heart stopped beating. The kid played in the yard with his grandparents and fell into a deep reservoir. For several minutes, he was unconscious in the pond until his grandfather realized what had happened and rushed to save his grandson. As soon as he was dragged ashore, his father came immediately and began to give him a heart massage with artificial respiration for 10 minutes. He was doing it until the rescue helicopter arrived. Doctors spent hours trying to reanimate the little boy, and after 3 hours and 18 minutes, Paul's heart began to beat on its own. Professor Lothar Schweiger, head of the Helios clinic where the baby was taken, said, "I have never experienced anything like this. When children have been in a state of clinical death for so long, they usually can't survive. This is the most unusual case in my practice." As soon as the child recovered, he told his parents that while he was unconscious, he saw his great-grandmother Emmy, who turned him away from the shining gate and convinced him to return to his parents. Paul said, "There was a lot of light and I was swimming. I went to the gate and saw my grandmother on the other side. She told me, 'What are you doing here, Paul? You have to go back to your mom and dad. I will be waiting for you here.'" This amazing story shocked all of Germany and the small town of Lichten where the Eick family lives. This is a truly soul-warming story, isn't it? Sandra Eiling, a nurse from Plymouth, was watching TV at home when she suddenly felt a terrible pain in her chest. She could no longer breathe normally because of the bursting pain, and at the same moment, she had a feeling that she was flying in an upright position at a great speed through a tunnel and some terrible faces flickering over her. At the end of the tunnel, Sandra saw the light, but the faster she flew, the further the light was. Then the woman seemed to break away from her own body and rose to the ceiling. At that point, all the pain disappeared. Sandra decided not to show her face, but she gave an interview to a famous publishing agency. "I did not feel my weight and breathed freely. There was a feeling of extraordinary lightness, peace, and bliss. I felt my body again, and probably at that moment my heart started beating," says Sandra. She woke her brother up, who was sleeping in his room. He told her, "You look like a ghost." When they called the doctors, she was urgently taken to the hospital. Doctors told her that there was a blockage of blood vessels and that she was very close to death. In an interview with a local TV channel, she said that since then she'd been praying a lot, although she wasn't religious before. The woman is sure that she saw both heaven and hell. Mary Neal worked as an orthopedic surgeon and liked traveling with her husband. In one of these trips in Chile, one accident occurred that changed her life forever. While kayaking down the waterfall, Mary's kayak pressed to the bottom and completely plunged into the water. Despite the rescue attempts of her friends, the woman was under the water for too long, about 20 minutes. Mary suffered a clinical death as a result of this accident. After revival, she said that she had left the body, had met with heavenly beings, and had heard the voice of God. Mary has even written a book called To Heaven and Back, which describes her amazing experience. The woman's life has changed forever, and according to her, she re-understood her mission on Earth. Dear friends, if you liked the episode, click like and share this video with your friends. See you next time!